Hi yogis, welcome back to another episode of RunYogi Diaries. This is your host Santosh Shiva. I hope you had a wonderful week and you also got some time to play, swim, bike, run, whatever is your thing. Every week I bring you conversations with people who are on a journey of well-being and endurance. I hope they spark some possibility in you, leave you with some tips and perhaps some inspiration to perspire. If you like this channel, consider subscribing to it. Hit like if you like this video and leave your comments below and let us know what you think. This episode is also available on all major podcast platforms if audio is your thing. In the house today is someone who has been at the ultra game for a couple of decades in the SFO Bay Area. His journey is unique in the sense that he thrives on road running as much as he has thrived on the trails. He has podium finishes in ultras and is on a quest and a pursuit of a Boston qualifying finish. We get behind the scenes on how he built his impressive resume of ultras and marathons, his foray into race direction, and his engagement with community to develop the local trail systems. Let's welcome Anil Rao. Hey Anil, welcome to RunYogi Diaries.
Hi Santosh, thanks for having me, and thank you for doing this chronicles.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor. It's a pleasure and honor to have you. Like I was looking at your ultra sign up resume. You're like 100 plus ultras, which is significant. That's amazing. You also placed in a couple of races. So you have a very impressive resume. So we have a lot to learn and talk about. Um, so before that, let me maybe have you do a quick personal introduction, and then we'll jump in.
Sure. Uh, my name is Anil Rao, and I've been running for now 20 years now, all in Bay Area. I'm a software engineer. I have a daughter who is 10 years old, and my wife used to be in tech before. Now she has moved on to another career. And running is my way of striking that balance in life, and my venue to uh, uh, go beyond what's possible as far as my sports, as far as my ambition in sports is concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and you've taken it to a totally another level. So obviously, we have a lot to learn from your own journey. So maybe we should, do a bit of a rewind here and bit of a flashback, right? Like the movies, go to black and white times with those grained photos. So let's get back to where it all started. And why did you get started in running?
Yeah, I think as always a sports fan, right from my early childhood days. I recall growing up in Raichur, my early days, and myself and my brother used to be part of this small hockey coaching club.
Hmm.
And Raichur is a small town at the border of Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh in India. And I remember once in a while we used to have this warm up routine as part of the hockey training, and that warm up routine involved running a 5K, and that 5K involved pretty much running around a pretty good section of Raichur. Those days Raichur was
Wow.
pretty small. Now I'm sure it's grown quite big. So that was maybe around when I was maybe 6 or 7 years old, and I think that I would consider as a first run where I really was interested in running. And after that, for a long time, I've not treating running as a sport, but more of a enabler for playing other sports, like
Hmm.
pretty much while playing soccer or basketball, just as a warm up routine. All the while until I came to Bay Area, I never pursued running as a sport. Um, then,
So you
the
played field hockey.
yeah, yeah,
What position?
mainly as a defender because those days I was playing with adults and they're like, okay, this guy is still young guy. Let us place him where he's kind of safe from all the major action, you know. So
Yeah,
yeah.
cool.
Uh,
I played field hockey. It was my favorite sport when I was in school. I used to play center forward. And
okay.
and the funny part about the way we used to play was that you know uh, there were different people, different capacities. So if the opponents got the ball back into our side, all the people who were in the forward used to also chase them. So you were running up and down up and down the field just to chase the ball. That's how we got into running.
Yeah,
Running
yeah,
up and down the field.
yeah.
Cool. That's nice.
It's an amazing sport. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so with respect to running in Bay Area, that didn't happen all the way until in 2002. So
Hmm.
mainly the trigger was my dream to do Eco Challenge someday.
Hmm.
And Eco Challenge is a multi-sport event which mainly involves climbing, um, rafting, mountain biking, and trail running, and with a good amount of navigation built in. And I bumped into this while on my summer break during my undergrad days, and that seemed a really interesting sport to do someday. Mainly because you're out there in the wild, a lot of unknowns apart from battling the elements. You're like crazy amount of endurance needed to accomplish this goal for multiple days.
Hmm.
Even the elite teams take a good 3 to 4 days to finish that. So most of the back of the packers, uh, they would end up taking 8 to 9 days. And someday I wanted to do that, and accidentally I bumped into few Eco Challenge videos in 2001, I think, and started watching them, and then that desire to do Eco Challenge really sparked again, and I took up running 5Ks and 10Ks then. Um,
It's
yeah,
that's fascinating. Um, there's this quote that I've seen a lot of times that it says, "In my sleep, I'm a Kenyan." It's a running specific sticker. I think in your case,
definitely.
it's like in my sleep, I'm an adventure runner or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's definitely a fuel which kept me going for all these years. And what's interesting is actual accomplishing. What I realized is you need to have some out there goals.
Hmm.
Actual accomplishing that goal may not be necessary because I not accomplished that, but in the process I come a
Hmm.
long way.
Yeah.
So yeah, the process of chasing to be a Kenyan is definitely uh, the process itself is a lot
Yeah.
more rewarding than the eventual goal. Yeah,
Yeah. Terrific. So, so you started running 2001, 2002 in what? The 5Ks, 10Ks, the usual way?
yeah, the typical entry into running in US. Just signed up for a 5K. My roommate was also interested in running, and we started running together. And slowly started ramping up from 5K to 10K. We did some few trail runs around the Bay Area, and then sometime in 2002 fall, I think November December time frame, I bumped into this Asha Marathon training program,
Hmm.
and they were promoting this training program wherein you raise funds for Asha for education, and there would be coaches who would be training you to finish a marathon. And those days, marathon distance was still definitely out there kind of goal. Even now, it's not a it takes a lot of dedication to complete a marathon, and that definitely encouraged me to go out and check the talk out there.
Hmm.
Um, and then, so I did. I went to one of the hotels where they had this presentation. My friend Rajiv Patel was there. Coach Tony Fong were there. They were talking uh, about the program. The organizers were talking about what the structure of program looks like and what are the races they are targeting towards.
Hmm.
And I looked at my wife and I just jumped into it. It seemed like a good fit coming from a 5K, 10K background to scaling to a marathon. It seemed like, oh wow, okay, I'm at the right place, right time. I think I should just take it up.
Yeah. And Asha in the Bay Area definitely has launched a lot of runners. I mean, I always wonder what do you guys breathe and eat over there because it's produced such a fantastic set of ultra runners, especially in the Indian American community. So,
Yeah,
it's like, what do you guys eat?
it,
What's in the dal you eat?
Yeah, definitely. Asha education definitely. I think has been. I mean, the team Asha training program has been pretty instrumental in encouraging more and more folks take up the cause of running, doing it for the cause as well.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I think more than eating, I think it's the belief, right? You
Yeah,
see people around you look like you know,
yeah.
who have a lifestyle like you, and you think that, oh, okay, if this guy can do it, I can do it.
Hmm.
That switch ends up happening when you see people of similar communities
Hmm.
doing such things, and I think that's sufficient trigger for anyone to take up these things.
Yeah. It's almost like,
It's pretty, almost like that sub 4 minute mile,
yeah,
4 minute mile accomplished by Bannister, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, all you need is the
And
first five.
also like a FOMO thing, right? Oh, he's something they're doing, and why am I not doing it? I mean, what am I missing out, right?
Yeah, yeah, peer pressure, FOMO.
Yeah,
Yeah, those things definitely, I think, comes into play. To some extent, they are healthy. Yeah.
yeah, terrific. So, so you started doing marathons, and what? San Francisco, is that where you started your first marathon?
So the first one was the Long Beach Marathon in
Hmm.
Southern California. It was a
Hmm.
hot race, and yeah, we had a hard time finishing that. Just took about some 5 hours, 12 minutes or something like that. But just glad to just finish this goal, which we've been working towards for the past 6 months or so, and also for the cause. So that was a fantastic feeling finishing that first marathon. Definitely, that's still my favorite moment as far as you know um, running is concerned.
Yep.
And the biggest um, breakthrough in that was this ecosystem of runners I got
Hmm.
into who were equally interested in running and who wanted to continue running beyond the training program. So that's how
Hmm.
I continued on doing longer distances and other trail adventures.
Yeah. Terrific. And like you said, at some point you seem to have switched to trails. It seems like you started on the road, but if you look at your resume, you are a heavy ultra runner, a lot of trail running. So when did that happen, and how did that happen?
Yeah, so the 2003 program was organized by my friends Padma and Kiran, and they were also equally interested in continuing beyond the training program,
Hmm.
which ends after 6 months. Um, so once we are done, we just continued running together. We did a couple of marathons together, and then we started chatting. Okay, there is this thing called 50K trail run, which is looks like it may be a next next step beyond marathon. So let's try it out. So in 2004, we did a trail run, all three of us. And then once we did that trail run, we got in touch with other runners who were treating these trail runs like a training run. Like 50K was just a starting point for them, and we got in touch with them, and we were still not gotten that ultra running bug yet. It was just a one-off thing in 2004. We did a few more marathons, and then at the end of 2004, we started chatting about, okay, what next? We've done a 50K, let's do something else. Maybe we can go ahead with 50 miler. So we did some research and chose something which we could chew, and we ended up finding this Helen Klein 50 miler in 2005 fall. So, so mainly we started ramping towards Helen Klein 50 miler. It's named after one of the legendary runners of those times, Helen Klein, and was organized by her husband Norm Klein, who is legendary himself in terms of race directing is concerned. He's done many races directing. So from 2004 to 2005, we just continued training for that Helen Klein 50 miler. And along the way, wanted to do a training 50K, which would be kind of a stopgap training run and see where we are. So we signed up for Quicksilver 50K. And that's when Raji also jumped in. He said, yeah, even I will try it out. So I think Quicksilver 50K was one of the key races for us and for me for sure, because I bumped into, met a lot of veteran ultra runners in that community, because Quicksilver was already 25 years old by that time, because it was a club started in early 80s, and the race was already 25 years old. I met a lot of ultra runners there, and they told a lot of stories while we were running 50K. Because most of these trail runs are run at a um, much more gradual pace than marathon, because you have to go longer, so you're conserving your resources. So met a lot of runners there, and that's how started scaling up.
The rest is history, as they say.
Yeah. Uh, Kind of. I think Quicksilver, yeah, has been a kind of a very key race. Yeah.
Mhm. And you placed in a 50K in 2007, right? Which is fascinating. So was that something you trained for, you aimed for, or it just happened because you were in the middle of all of it?
Yeah, I think it just uh, I don't think I specifically trained for that. It just happened as a gradual process of running longer distances, and you after a while you improve on you figured out your nutrition predominantly, your pacing, so you gradually improve on there is an incremental improvement in your capabilities. You built long running days or many years, so
Yep.
you get better at it.
Yeah, and so what was your how did you feel about that? I mean, so it seems like it happened, or rather, you were not. So, are you someone who's competitive by nature?
I think I was competitive when I used to play sports,
Hmm.
uh, mainly team sports or individual sports. Um, but as a runner, I was not that competitive. I don't know why. Maybe because I was not doing that well when I started.
Hmm.
Um, but more recently, I think that part is again coming back.
Hmm.
I feel like doing better in my age group, or just focusing on more quality than quantity of races.
Hmm.
So yeah, when I was when I was ramping up on ultra running, it was mainly focused on kind of with the goal of completing the race. It was
Mhm.
more of a focus than placing well.
Yeah. So coming back to that particular race where you placed, and I was looking at the results. It was not a small race. It was a fairly there was a good. It's not like 5 people ran and you got second. You placed second in amongst I think probably 50 plus 100 almost 100 runners. So definitely, how did you feel about that? Did that change your perspective to your own ability to run or your approach to training?
Yeah,
Uh,
I think that kind of encouraged me to focus more on quality.
mm,
So that's when I decided to scale back and maybe thought that, oh, maybe I can do better at marathons.
mhm,
So I started doing one marathon a year with the
mm,
focus of uh, focus of just improving in that one marathon. So most of my ultras would be in the first half of the year, and the next half I would focus on improving on my marathon times. So that's how I gradually improved right from 2007 all the way till 2011. I would say. Uh, California International Marathon has been one of my kind of anchor marathons. And I used to go there every time when I went, I could improve by like, say, 5 minutes, 15 minutes. So I started out with, I think, 4:45 in 2003. And then in 2007, when I ran my first sub 4 there. And gradually by 2011, I got my best time, which is still my best time of 3:14 or something like that. 3:14,
3:14.
47. Yeah, 3:14,
Wow,
47 there.
that is
Um,
fast.
that's a yeah, decent time.
So that's a
That
Boston qualifier, right? That's a Boston qualifier for you?
No, I was 5 minutes slower than Boston qualifier for the time that time.
For
Um,
the age group. Okay.
yeah, so from that point on, from that point on, I started chasing Boston qualifier every year. I would do one marathon and try
Hmm.
to get to that elusive goal of getting a qualifier. But I think I constantly started missing it by 5 minutes here and there.
Hmm.
So I not made it yet. So, but
Okay.
I'm hopeful because with every 5 year age group, the qualifier is relaxed, right? So
Yeah. What's fascinating about your journey is that you've been able to kind of run this two tracks simultaneously, the road running, which is a little more competitive, and
yeah,
your ultras, which is a little bit more I would say less competitive. It's more experiential. So you seem to have managed that pretty well, right? And it seems like both are feeding each other, and your that's what I hear, at least in what you're saying.
yeah. Uh, I think uh, I think that experiment in 2007, where I shifted to marathon in the later half of the year, it really helped. In fact, I would encourage everyone
Hmm.
to balance it out, because what happens is if you don't use it, you lose it, kind of
Hmm.
thing. Wherein ultras in general, when you have a focus of completing the event, we tend to get slower.
Hmm.
And as we tend to get as we start doing more and more ultras, we are not using that part of the muscle group which
Yeah.
can contribute to your faster running.
Yeah.
And by mixing it with shorter races, it doesn't have to be a marathon. Even a half marathon
Hmm.
training plan is a good complement to ultras, in fact. So that has worked out really well, both in terms of adding that quality into your ultras and in
Yeah.
terms of time as well, and giving your body a break from running these extremely long distances.
Yeah.
I find backing off from high mileage to more quality, shorter training for marathons has helped in multiple ways.
Yeah. Makes sense. And then I also noticed that you placed in the 12-hour format in 2017 in San Francisco. You placed in that, right? So that's an interesting format that seems to have caught among some runners. What attracted you to that?
Yeah, so the timed race has been one of the earliest form of ultra running. If you
Hmm.
look at pedestrianism, which was a precursor to ultra running, there used to be competitions of 6 days.
Hmm.
Uh, Folks would be invited to come to a stadium and run or walk for 6 days. So this time format has a really long history, right from I think a late 19th century or even
Hmm.
earlier than that. So yeah, time format is extremely simple to organize, and also from a runner's perspective is easy to self crew yourself, and
Right.
in terms of the logistics of it is really convenient. And then if you want to just focus on the performance part of it, it's a lot more easier because you're controlling a lot of variables. You're not focusing on trail marking, or you're not
Hmm.
focusing on the terrain, the weather aspect. All those things are kind of eliminated here. Purely you're focusing on how well can I do in given a fixed time. So
Right.
that definitely is appealing. But in a but a lot of folks find that not that motivating, because the lot of ultra runners are interested in running in pristine locations.
Hmm.
They're attracted by the changing courses all the time, and that's their way of dealing with the boredom of, so
Hmm.
to speak, boredom of ultra running. Um, but if you can get over that part, if you can
Hmm.
just run within your mind, uh, 12-hour format or any time format is really interesting format to give your best within a given time.
And I think just fast forward, you seem to have you continued scaling, and then I see that then you did the 200 miler, right? So seems like that was another big step up in your journey as you were preparing for the next level, right?
Yeah, I think 200 miler. Yeah, it was never in my plan as such. Because I was, I mean, when we initially started running, 200 miler didn't even exist. So those days, 100 miler was the marquee
Yeah.
event for ultra runner, at least in US. Um, uh, yeah, I think it
for for
just happened.
average for an average human being, at 26.2 itself is a huge amount of running, right? And then the 100 milers, and then now you hear folks like you who are doing 200 milers. It's just mind blowing, right? So maybe you can help us unpack that a little bit, right? What how do you prepare for something like this, mentally, physically, and how do you do it?
Yeah, I think from what I can see, 200 miler, at least in the current format, it seems like it's a totally different sport
Hmm.
um, than 100 milers, mainly because it's over multiple days.
Hmm.
Um, Most of the folks need at least 3 to 4 days to complete, and when you need that kind of time, you invariably you're sleep deprived.
Hmm.
The kind of energy system your body relies on is significantly different. You're going at a much relatively lesser intensity than a 100-mile run. So you need to feed the body some real food. You
Hmm.
can't just run on gels and energy drinks and liquid nutrition, different kinds of liquid nutrition. So in terms of seeing 200 miles, it's a totally different sport. I think the current format is intentionally done so that it can attract um, both the backpackers and the mountaineers from other sport into 200-mile events, and ultra runners, the traditional 100-mile runners, into 200 miles as well. So it's kind of a union of these two skill sets. Uh, uh, a good long distance runner can take on 200 miles, or a long distance backpacker can take on 200-mile runners, because you have sufficient time to finish it. Uh, but the way you deal with it is a lot different than a 100-mile run. Predominantly, sleep deprivation is a big challenge, and that varies from person to person, how they deal with it. I mean, I know folks who run 200 miles with just 90 minutes of sleep
Wow.
over 4 days, and there are folks who have done it with maybe 9 hours of sleep over 4 days, 9 or maybe 10 hours of sleep. So if you're faster, you can afford to take a little longer breaks, with the trade-off of, because the clock does not stop. So if you're faster, you take longer breaks with the trade-off of taking longer time to finish as well. But if you don't care about the finish time, um, you can take more breaks. So in terms of what's needed to finish 200-mile runs, I would say a good running base, of a good ultra running base, coming from ultra running background, I would say a good running base of at least 3 to 4 years before you take on 200-mile runs. Um, Mainly because there's a lot of pounding on the body. And then there's also the aspect of knowing your body in terms of the kind of resources it needs at different times. So, like like understanding your body's requirement in terms of hydration, electrolytes, calories, those things, and then also in terms of taking care of your body in terms of, when you are doing these long events, there's a lot of pounding, and based on the kind of races you're doing. Your feet is invariably going to get trashed big time.
Yeah.
So having a good understanding of how to deal with different foot injuries, predominantly blisters, or even if you get other kinds of injuries, how to compensate for that during the race, and for just from the sake of building a good foundation of running, on top of which you can scale your endurance running to 200-mile runs. So I would say a good 3-4 years of running would be prudent to do before you jump in.
Yeah.
Um, uh,
So, from your own personal training perspective, right? When you were doing the first one, the Tahoe 200, and prepping for it, how did you get to simulate some of these? I mean, did you have a coach, or did you? How did you have? Did you? How did you prep for, let's say, this the sleep deprivation, for example, and the endurance at the same time? So, how did you know that you were getting ready for this?
Yeah, so sleep deprivation is one of the areas where definitely I struggle a lot. Even since from the first one, I had a hard time running that. In fact, I have a funny incident with respect to my first 100. I, I was running with Rajiv, and he's a pretty strong night runner, and I have a hard time. Once it's 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, oh, I need my bed kind of thing. And I had a hard time running those night miles. And somehow we were running Tahorim Trail 100. This was my first 100. His was second 100. And I was barely staying awake and doing zombie walks, hallucinating many times, and I was just lying on the trail, catnapping 15 minutes or so, and Raji was sitting next to me, and there's another runner passes by, and he says, "No, this is no time to sleep. You guys are fighting cutoff. You need to just rush and make the cutoff at 75 mile aid station." And that just was a jolt for us. Like Raju said, "Oh man, Anil, we need to go. Come on, dig deep. Let's get going." And man, that was a big shocker because we would have missed the cutoff pretty close, and we just made it in time and got back on track. So since that race, sleep deprivation has always
Hmm.
been my challenge, and going into a 200 mile event, 200 mile race with 4 nights is definitely. I knew that I was more concerned about not sleeping for 4 nights than the distance. So I knew that that's going to be something I need to deal with. Unfortunately, there is no adaptation as
Hmm.
such. It's not like training for endurance where you gradually ramp up and train yourself to run a particular distance. It's not like you continue to sleep lesser and lesser in the hope that that's sufficient. Um, so you have these substitutes like caffeine tablets,
Hmm.
uh, yeah, caffeine tablets, coffee you can have, which help for 1 or 2 nights. But beyond that, um, you just have to rely on sleeping. Whenever you can get some cat naps here and there, take it. And yeah, going in, I knew that this is going to be a big challenge, and luckily I had uh, three good pacers with me for 50 miles each in the last 150 miles of the race, and they were keeping me on top of sticking to the trail and letting me sleep whenever I felt like. Uh, because with this sleep with fighting this sleep deprivation is like going through this foggy
Hmm.
uh, through a foggy tunnel.
Hmm.
Like for example, when you go to a hill station, you have a foggy area, you're going on a road, and you just need to have a belief that you'll get out of that foggy zone at some point.
Okay.
It's a feeling like that. You just need to wait for that first sun ray and hope that that new sunlight will definitely bring a new leash of energy, and it's a new day out there, um, and you
Makes
bounce back.
sense. Oh well, it doesn't make sense, but I guess I kind of get. I can only imagine how you deal with it. Seems like definitely a lot of willpower here, and more to do with anything logical. Now, what happens like after the race? 4 or 5 days, you've not slept, you've been at it. Do you get back to into a regular circadian rhythm immediately, or it takes time for you to get back into a sleep pattern?
Yeah, with 100-mile events, it takes a good 1 week to actually start sleeping properly.
Hmm.
But for Tower 200, it took me much longer. I think of good 2 3 weeks. I was sleeping okay, but I was feeling extremely fatigued
Hmm.
for a good 2 3 weeks. I didn't have any appetite for running. I did not. I was not thinking about any races for sure. So I knew my body very well by that time that this is just a phase. I need to let body heal.
Yeah. And in terms of your building the endurance itself for something like a 100 miler and of course a 200 miler, what kind of volumes are you doing per on a weekly basis to build endurance?
Yeah. From a For most of the 100 milers, I typically have um, like a 6 to 7 month training cycle, right?
Mhm.
Right from say, let's say, I have a 100 miler in July. I start training from Jan with with long runs of 20 to 25 miles. And then my weekly mileage is in the range of 40 or 50 in the beginning, but slowly I'll ramp up to maybe at the max 70 miles for a 100 miler. Um, for 200 miler, it's pretty much similar. I think that the volume of running for a 200 wise 100, at least from my perspective, does not differ. If you can run a 100, you can do a 200 as well. But the execution of 100 versus 200 is significantly different, because the amount of running you do in a 100 miler is a lot more, because it's a 30 to 36 hour event, whereas in a 200 it's like 90 to 100 hour event. So it's definitely a lot more faster hikes and some running here and there, uh, at, at least for a runner who finishes in the back. So the training perspective, the training workload to be given is similar, but the way you distribute that weekly mileage is kind of is different. Like for example, for a 100 miler, I would go and do a 50 miler, and that would be my longest run for a 100 miler. But in the case of 200 miler, I would do more like a 20 miler on the first day, and 30 miler on the second day, and 20 miler on the third day. Do more of a back-to-back runs. So, so the way you achieve that 70 miler is slightly different, because you need to get used to the idea of moving, running or moving when you're tired. You know, because after 50 miles, pretty much you have next 150 miles, you're going to be tired for sure. So
Yeah.
it's all about getting used to that.
Awesome. And now let's talk a little bit about recovery and general well-being while you're doing such kind of intense running, and especially from a an Indian American or an Indian uh, point of view in terms of food, what you eat. Is it any different? Have you tweaked that to make your recovery better, or maybe to manage inflammation, just to manage injuries? Because with this level of volume, one small step is going to could derail you, right? So what have you kind of learned and adapted in your journey?
Yeah, I think uh, along with recovery, the other thing which has really helped me is having this twice a week strength training routine.
Mm,
I tend to invariably I tend to prioritize more than my running. Even if
mm,
I tell my friends, like, even if you're running 10 minutes less, that's okay. 10 or 20 minutes less, that's okay. Go and spend more time strength training.
mhm,
So so twice a week I invariably do strength training. There are, I mean, all kinds of workouts out there, but
mhm,
as simple as just simple lunges and squats and core workouts, they go a long way in just maintenance. And then recovery wise, I think initially I was a lot more conscious because I'm a vegetarian, so
okay.
conscious of my lack of protein intake. So I used to do a lot of whey protein in the early days, whey protein or ensure shakes. Um, but more recently, I not been on top of it. But I think I used to measure earlier what my protein intake is earlier, and um, I think the big indicator used to be how much sleep I need after a particular workout. If I'm able to if I'm able to get away with 7 8 hours, that means my body is adapting to the workout reasonably well. So I think sleep, a good amount of sleep, and staying on top of protein intake has helped me, I think.
That makes sense. So strength training is key. That's key takeaway. It's a gold in what you're saying. Reduce even if you reduce a little bit of running,
Yeah.
focus on strength training. I think that's something I'm hearing more and more from other runners too. and especially as you age, the strength training part of it becomes a crucial element. And have
Definitely.
you had to deal with any injury at all in these 20 years or so that you've been running?
Yeah, I had a few injuries, uh, tightness in my Achilles, and nothing significant to kind of skip a season or so.
Mm,
Been kind of lucky, I think. Yeah, nothing significant, but one of the things I tend to do is as soon as I get the first signs of some kind of niggles or pains, I
mm,
tend to back off. Uh,
okay.
you know, so that has helped me just stay on top of it. I would reduce the intensity and just back off. Um, yeah, and apart from that, there are some good sports masseurs around. So I've been able to take advantage of them whenever I had injuries and just gotten out of it.
That's a good
That's
that's a good tip, good takeaway for the audience who's looking for some takeaways is if cut back early, heal rather than push through it and make it worse, right?
yeah,
And coming from a veteran like you who's been doing this for 20 years, and it's a big lesson, especially if somebody who's early in their journey. That's a very valuable tip there.
yeah. That's always worthwhile.
And family, with this level of training, you got a job, you got a family. uh, how do you get permission to just be away for this long? How do you manage
Yeah,
that?
yeah. I mean, running and being married have been kind of equal parts of my life now. I've been doing both of them. I've been into both of them for a good 20 years now. So yeah, I think I learned along the way how to manage these things,
Hmm.
manage my running in life. So one few best practices, if I can say, that has
Yeah.
worked for me at least was at the end of the year. Typically, this is the time of the year when I kind of plan my entire next year as far
Hmm.
as running is concerned. Okay, so I plan out, maybe have 5 or 6 races around the year, and then discuss with my wife. Okay, these are the times when I'm away from home, or this is the time commitment I need for doing these things. Do you see any conflict here? And I just plan it out. So yeah, sometimes we have to go back and forth. Sometimes, yeah, setting the
Yeah.
expectation really helps. The other thing is um, running relatively in kind of unpleasant hours. I
Hmm.
mean, everyone would like to run 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning, but I think that's something of a luxury, I think, as an ultra runner. So my favorite time of the week is 5 to 9 on a Saturday morning. I'm always on trail, more or less,
Hmm.
because that's the least disruptive as far as family is concerned. I can get a good 4 hour run with my friends and back home by 9:30. Um, yeah, that's the least disruptive. And then
Yeah.
the other thing is focusing more on uh, quality than quantity. Sometimes
Hmm.
what happens is we tend to think, oh, I need a 6 hour run or a 7 hour run. But actually, um, uh, if you see the kind of stress response your body takes is similar if you can give intense 3 or 4 hour workout. So
Yeah.
sometimes we tend to go out for a 6 7 hour run because maybe we can afford the time. But
Hmm.
instead of that, I would just do a 3 or 4 intense workout that seem to give similar benefit. And as far as ramping up for 100 mile is concerned, I'll just stick to usually one big long run a month. um, which kind of slowly prepares me for the big race in July or August timeframe. So these kind of
Yeah.
things kind of for the most part has kind of helped me kind of balance out running and family life.
Those are great tips. A lot of gold in what you said. I think first is planning for the following year is a great idea, right? Sitting down at the end of the year, looking for what races you want to do, spacing it out. I think one is setting expectations with the spouse. That's one part, definitely a big deal. But for your own planning and preparing is a great idea, because I also believe that when you set those kind of commitments, it also incentivizes you to stay healthy, train. It's not like every morning you get up, no matter how accomplished ultra runner you are, you feel like going and running. There must be days that you don't want to run. But
Yeah.
when you have that carrot out there dangling about that, it gets you going. That's a great takeaway for anyone who's looking to do this in a consistent basis. uh,
Yeah, the other thing is once you have this plan set out, try to stay away from FOMO or peer pressure or anything like
mm,
that. Because what happens, especially in the initial years, there's so many events out there. It's like a kid in a
mm,
uh, toy store. I mean, every weekend, pretty much in Bay Area, you can run at exotic locations, um, and there will be always friends saying, "Oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that." There's Facebook, there's Strava, there's uh, there's so many stimulus.
yeah,
Uh, I think at some point you need to back off and say, I think this is too much. I need to strike a balance. I think it
yeah,
comes with couple of years. Everyone has to go through their own journey.
yeah,
I feel,
yeah,
but after 2 3 years, everyone realizes that, oh, this is not sustainable. I can't do this, uh, running at different places all the time. And
yeah.
the other tip which works a lot of time is my driving time has to be less than my run time. So
Mm,
as far as, especially for a distances of 50 mile or less, I won't drive to a destination if it's taking me, um, more than my run time. It's just not worthwhile. I mean, unless I'm going with the family. That's different. Yeah.
so you don't run too much outside California, mostly in and around.
Yeah. Apart from 100-mile events,
Mm,
I don't tend to travel out. Yeah.
yeah, cool. And as you were telling me about this planning thing, it almost felt like, it's like if you had a traveling job, right? You probably are going to be away a similar amount of time from your family. Like if you are a pilot, or if even if you're a senior executive in a company, you're going to be away for that long.
Yeah.
So it's like some of those lessons are applicable even if you're an ultra runner, because it takes you away for that long.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's right.
yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense. Just bring the better version of yourself back home. I think your spouse will say it's all right. I can tolerate you as long as I get a
Yeah.
better version, not the
Absolutely.
cranky one.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that reminds me. I mean, when I was doing Western States 100, that time my wife kept telling me, "Don't DNF. DNF is the dreaded word, right?" Because she knows that, okay, the guy who is going out would be more. I mean, the guy who is coming in will be a lot more crankier than the
Yeah,
person who's
yeah,
gone out. So just finish the job and come home because I can't deal with it. Yeah.
yeah, makes sense. Um, Moving on to you also direct races, right? You're also into directing a race of your own. It's a 50K, correct?
Yeah, so yeah, it's Ruth Anderson Memorial Ultra Marathons. So interestingly, Raji Patel, my good friend, he was directing it
Hmm.
between 2008 to 2019, and in 2013, he asked me, "Would you be interested in joining me?" So I said, uh, "Yeah, sure." I see a particular pattern in ultra running community. As you run for a few years, you are so much influenced by the people around the
Mhm.
ultra running community, because predominantly it's a volunteer led event. So invariably, after a few years, you want to volunteer in different events, and then once you have gone beyond 5 years, you tend to take more active roles in these events,
Mhm.
either doing trail maintenance or being an aid station captain. And then after a few more years, you want to start your own races or take over some of the older races. So
Mhm.
I think that's what happened with 2013 when Raju asked, would you like to join? I jumped at the opportunity because we've been running together for a long time, and it's always fun to hang around with a guy like Rajiv. And yeah, that was a fantastic opportunity to give back to the community
Mhm.
and gain experience race directing, and I've been doing that since then,
So
creating some.
how's it like directing a race? I mean, 50K. This is in the trails inside a forest. It's not like very different from directing a road race, for example, right? So
So
how is it for you?
So this one, Ruth Anderson Memorial Ultra, happens to be around Lake Merced. It's
Okay.
a 4.5 mile lake right in the middle of San Francisco, and
Okay.
there's a bike path along the lake. So this is people are the 50K folks are looping around the lake for seven
Okay.
times. 50 milers are looping around for 11 times. So, from a logistical perspective, it's not that rigorous,
Hmm.
mainly because we don't have to mark the course, and we don't have to worry about tracking the runners, because
Hmm.
as a race director, that's one of the bigger challenges, because the safety of the runners is the utmost when it comes to holding a event. And here it's
Right.
much more easier to go back and uh, track runners. So
Hmm.
logistically, it's quite simple. So yeah, the typical process of organizing an event like this is we need to file for a permit from San Francisco Parks, and we do it early in the year, get the permit, and then work on different logistics of the race in terms of organizing some toiletries facilities along the way, getting volunteers for the race, getting swag for the runners, publicizing the event, and yeah, mainly, and then getting sponsors for the event.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and then involve. This is a competitive race as well, so involve some of the racing teams around. Make
Okay.
sure that they're putting that on the calendar,
It's fun.
and have a good race. Yeah, it's a great opportunity to give back to the community, um, and I think I feel I get a lot more from the
Hmm.
event than I put in. So I really love it.
And you also been involved in a project in connecting the trails in the San Francisco area, right? The 500-mile project. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
how's that going?
um, yeah. So, so, during the pandemic, since there were no races, we had this uh, kind of informal event called the Bay Area. It was called the Together Relay. So, Bay Area Ridge Trail is a collection of trails all around the Bay Area. Uh, so, the eventual goal is to build a 550-mile trail along Bay Area. So basically, Silicon Valley lies. I mean, it's a valley surrounded by Diablo Range on one side, and then Santa Cruz Mountain Range on the other side. And then there is different trail systems along the ridges.
Hmm.
So Bay Area Ridge Trail started sometime in the late 90s with the idea of having this 550 miles trail around. And over the years, 400 miles have been connected, and there are still this sparse disconnects between different parks of the range of 150 miles, which which the Ridge Trail organization, which mainly is has the goal of connecting them, is working on. And the plan is to build this next 150 miles over a period of 20 years. So I got really interested in this mainly because last year, since because of pandemic, all the races got cancelled, and this happened to be one of the events organized by one race company called Pacific Coast Trail Runs.
Mhm.
And then I, along with three more friends, um, we formed a team, and the team was to be named based on the 80s music band. And
Mhm.
then we ended up picking up Indian Ocean as our team name because it seemed pretty apt for our venture. So we ended up doing this 400 miles around the Bay Area over a period of 9 months. So just doing that it gave us a glimpse around the beauty of the area. That's one,
Mhm.
and the amount of work that has gone behind building this collection of trails. So that's how we got more passionate, and we connected with the Ridge Trail folks, and we are working on putting one small event next year as a fundraiser for Ridge Trail. So that's one of the things we want to do. Basically, take more active role in trail advocacy or raise funds for this organization.
Yeah,
So
makes
that's become
sense.
our next pet project.
Terrific. Yeah, I mean, what's fascinating, Anil, is that you've been at it for so long, and it's also nice to see you getting into projects where you're giving back because ultimately someone is doing this in the background, right? We
Yeah.
take some of this infrastructure for granted, whether it is a race direction. Every time I go to a race, and I've had a couple of race directors on my podcast, and the amount of work they put in, and there's any small inconvenience for a runner can get amplified, especially because the state of mind people are in. So giving back, it's an amazing thing you're doing. So it's not easy, it's and I'm sure it's rewarding, but it's also a lot of selflessness involved, just doing it for the right reason. So that's amazing. So what next now in your running journey itself? What's around the corner for 2022?
Yeah. I think 2022. We briefly spoke. Big time, we want to actively get involved with the Bay Area Ridge Trail folks. That's one thing. We have one event planned for 22 as a fundraiser. Some of our friends are running it. Um, and then, apart from that, on the personal front, I'm excited about finishing an unfinished job.
Hmm.
I did a 100 miler. I attempted a 100 miler last year called Scout Mountain 100 in Idaho. I ended up DNFing at around 74 miles. So I want to get back
Hmm.
and finish that. And apart from that, there's one more 200 miler I'm interested in Oregon. It starts in near St. Helens
Hmm.
in the Cascades and ends in a small town called Randall in Washington. So it's a point-to-point 200-mile run. So these two events are kind of my anchor races for next year.
All right. And where does Boston qualification fit in? Is that still on
Uh,
the cards?
Yeah, Boston qualification is there. Let's see. I'm in a new age group now, so it seems little bit more attainable. Let's see.
Hmm. Hmm.
Maybe towards the end of the year, I might try again in CIM in 22.
Terrific.
Yeah,
Yeah. Wishing you all the best in what you're up to next. And, I think we covered a fair bit of ground. And thanks for sharing your life journey in running. A lot of valuable insights, right? For somebody coming from you, a veteran who's been doing this for a while, there's a lot of takeaway for me for sure, and I'm sure for the audience as well. So, coming to the last part of our conversation, which is a fun part of the conversation. Not that the rest of it was not fun, but this is a lighter side of it. I have a fun Q&A round that I do with my guests. So are you ready for that?
sure.
Okay, let's get to that. Okay, my first question, which is my favorite question, is what is your favorite junk food?
Junk food. It should be aloo chaat.
Aloo chaat. I've had many people who love chaat. And chaat is not entirely unhealthy, so it's kind of a healthy junk food.
Yeah,
Any favorite place in the Bay Area that you go to for aloo chaat?
yeah, yeah. And Bay Area Delhi wala chaat in Sunnyvale is one of the best, I think. Yeah.
Hmm, nice. Next visit to Bay Area, I'm headed there. I haven't traveled to Bay Area since the pandemic hit, so I'm waiting to get in the plane and get there.
Okay. Cool.
What's the weirdest thing you've ever eaten in general, ever?
Um, I think it's yeah. It just comes to mind as some race. There was one race where I had some cheesy soup. Uh, they call it vegetarian, but it had rubbery texture to it, and
I'm sure that was not vegetarian.
yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, what it was, but yeah, I mean, at that point, I was like, okay, give me anything, kind of thing. So I ended up having it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. All right.
some soup.
It's
Yeah,
it's like somebody ate pepperoni thinking it was made of pepper.
yeah. For all you know, I did that. Yeah,
Yeah, that is definitely weird from your point of view. Yep. A person you want to thank today on the show.
yeah. It has to be my friend Rajiv Patel.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Thank
he's
you,
been
Rajiv.
definitely.
He was
Yeah,
also a great guest on my show, and I got to you through him. So thank you for that too. So he gets a double thank you. All right. Your go-to mantra when you're in the pain cave.
uh, my go-to mantra is always "It'll get better." Yeah, um, yeah,
The, the yeah, that's a good mantra in general for life, I guess. When you're in any kind of pain cave in any part of life,
yeah.
it
But
can't get
yeah,
worse than this.
yeah, yeah.
All right. The last one, which is again a favorite question of mine. If we made a movie of your life or your journey, what genre would you place it in? And who gets to play your role? Do you watch
Uh,
movies?
yeah, yeah, definitely. What genre? A fun documentary would be good.
Hmm.
Who gets to play? The guy who played Dhoni. Uh,
Oh,
he's no more
Sushant,
though.
Sushant Rajput. Rest in peace. He's no more.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Um,
In his memory.
in his memory, yeah.
In his memory. Yeah. Great choice. Great choice. All right. Hey, you did well. We in the fun Q and A round, and as usual, it is fun, and we also learn a few more things about our guest in the process. Kind of coming to last, wrap up here. I'd like to give you the last word in the show. Any final message for our audience?
Um, yeah. Thanks for hosting me, and thanks for doing this chronicles. Um, I would just say, just try pushing your barriers and sky's the limit. Um, yeah, and just stay positive.
Terrific. And you can say, look at me, I've done it. So great,
Yeah,
great example.
if I can do it, you can do it.
Yeah, and you've done it in style. Thanks, Anil. It was a fantastic conversation. I'm going to let you enjoy the rest of the evening, and we shall stay in touch.
Thanks, Santosh. See you.
Thank you.